I mean, it works very well. And it also allows you to keep the steroid dosages reasonably low. And it seems that even with, careful use, health parameters stay sustained for 1 to 2 years. And that brings it to one of my favorite, insulin. Now, there's a million different insulin formulas. So let's just keep it broad. From an anabolic perspective, I think it's in the Triforce. But I might have to revisit that, because now that I have experience with Increlex, which is next, recombinant IGF-1, I have not used insulin since I found Increlex, because the water retention is less and the fullness is 10 times better.
The burden on your health is less.
Agreed. Yeah. But again, you can only use what you have access to. Yep. So I do think that insulin is a good way to kind of support your pancreas when you're going in higher calories. Of course, Kurt, you have a little bit of a different idea, but I would say that this is like end stage glucose management, obviously. Right? And most guys don't need it, but if you want to push to 250, 260 pounds, 280 pounds, then yeah, I think there's a place for it. Kurt, let's revisit this a little bit. Have you changed your stance on insulin since we last talked? Since Anabolic Roundtable episode 1?
I mean, I still think if you need it, then fine. But I don't think most guys that are using it probably need it, right? When you get guys, even the big guys, when you get them lean enough to get on stage, they generally don't need it.
Yeah,
it tends to be a body fat issue. And then the guys that are newer at this sport probably don't eat enough to justify it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think when it's needed, sure. When it's not needed, no. And it's not so wildly anabolic on its own that it's going to take this guy to the next level, right? Like you said, it works synergistically with other things.
Yeah. Insulin kind of comes when you reach that point where you can't possibly eat. And you need to get bigger, and there's already a good amount of testing, growth hormone, or whatever else in place. And maybe you even need to throw the thyroid medication at it to kind of help with the nutrient partitioning, because it seems that testosterone or any kind of anabolic stack, growth hormone, a little bit of thyroid, whether that's T4 or T3 at a low replacement dose, split that over the day, and then insulin. I mean, it works very well, I must say. And it also allows you to keep the steroid dosages reasonably low, which is, for your health parameters. Of course, your insulin, like we're not talking about 50 IUs, 80 IUs of Lantus. That was not my style, right? That's other educators and other bodybuilding coaches that recommend that. I never went that high. But I have recommended 25 to 50 IUs with careful tracking of the health parameters, lipase, amylase, pancreatic markers, that kind of stuff. And it seems that even with careful use, health parameters stay sustained for 1 to 2 years, with the occasional mini diet to kind of restore insulin sensitivity. But of course, this is the highest of the highest level of guys that live this lifestyle 24/7. And I don't think that insulin is for anybody unless you live this 24/7. Right? You got to be a full-time meathead.
Yep.
Well,
the potential risks, right? I mean, guys go hypo. We've all seen it in gyms. So you got to be careful with it.
Yeah. No, it is a very high list of disclaimers. Like when I wrote my insulin ebook, it was 70 pages of disclaimers and how to use and what to pay attention to. And then, 30 more pages of what to do when you use it. Yeah, of course, everybody skipped over the first 70 pages. That's how it is. Dean, what do you think? Insulin, where would you rank it? What's your opinion?
I'm going to be controversial maybe and say like low C, high D in terms of like the overall benefit from a muscle building perspective that you get from it. Like you said, there is some merits when we're trying to perhaps force appetite or force nutrient partitioning. But then again, like rapid acting insulin or mealtime insulins, you've probably only got about 3 opportunities during the day to utilize it. Because you're more like, and what I mean is from, let's say, 9 a.m. up until, let's say, bedtime's 10 p.m. up until about 5 p.m. That's your window of using this, because once you go beyond that, if you get caught out with that secondary peak later in the night and you've gone to sleep, well, it's going to disturb your sleep because you're going to wake up hypo, and you're going to be having to rush to try and correct that hypoglycemic second peak from the insulin you shot with your last meal. So Yeah, I don't see it being hugely anabolic as a peptide by itself versus growth hormone, but it does have some additive benefit. Like you said, I'm on the same sort of side of if you need to help support pancreatic beta cell health using a basal insulin in the background. Replacement dose, like what you do with maybe thyroid medication. And we know that on average we make about 20 IUs of basal insulin from morning to night. Other than that, mealtime insulins, again, we definitely don't want to be doing what we joked about, where you shoot like 15, 20 IUs of mealtime insulin, just eat, eat to try and keep the hyper away. It's strategic. And even then, like I said, you'd be pretty stupid to do rapid acting insulin before like a heavy leg or heavy deadlift session. So again, that decreases the number of days when you can actually use it on body parts.
Yeah, you can always use it post-workout, obviously. So I do think there's something to say for a long-acting basal insulin upon waking. Maybe a second dose later in the evening if you can't feel comfortable pushing past 25 IUs. So you maybe do 25 IUs upon waking, 10 IUs before bed, to kind of have a more consistent level over the day, and then 5 IUs post-workout of Humalog. That seems to be pretty reasonable. But now we're talking about a 260-pound guy, 275-pound guy. I'm still not against recommending insulin to guys that really want to live their lifestyle and they prove themselves. So you stick to test GH and insulin and just leverage that to the maximum degree. But you really have to earn it. You really need to do that under guidance. So I would say for most guys, it's F tier. But if you need it and you know how to use it, I would say it's B tier.
Okay, I agree.
Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd be pretty much in agreement there. If we're looking at someone in the top end, it'll probably fall into B. But for the majority, sub 190 pounds, there's much better things to be doing as opposed to worrying about timings and amounts of insulin.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is not to give everybody the wrong idea, even though I just said it's B tier. I'm going to put it in D tier, right in between A and F, so people don't get the wrong idea. So I'm putting insulin below generic growth hormone and MK677. But if you're highly advanced, you can read in between the lines, and you're like, what, fuck, I'm going to put insulin in S tier. But then that's up to you. Still, if you have access to Increlex, you probably don't need insulin. Yeah. It's that simple. So